Don't they look beautiful?
Oh yeah.
Very
Well,
nice.
see, mine are donut earrings this morning. I was feeling festive, so. I always tell Monica, anytime I feel like I need a pick me up, I have a shirt too that matches it that says "Do not kill my vibe." Do not kill my vibe. So I had to wear my donut earrings this morning.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You live near a Jupiter Donuts?
Actually, it's funny. So I live in Royal Palm, and we actually have a Jupiter Donuts like right down the street from us. So yes, we enjoy them.
I know they have one out there. Yeah, they're good.
Those are great.
Yeah, the maple bacon donut's my favorite.
Yeah. Oh, I like the red velvet.
I'm scared to try it. I'm afraid I'll like it too much. But my kids,
I know. Those are dangerous.
You are sitting here making me hungry.
I know. Well, you know, the funny thing is, I don't even eat meat, but I don't know what it is. If you give me anything like bacon or anything that comes from a pig, I will eat it. I love bacon. You can put it on anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, good. So welcome, Bob and Carol. Is it Carolyn or Caroline?
Actually, Carol is good. It always asks for name and it like auto fills most of the time. So yeah.
Carol. Okay, good. And Kristen and Nicole. Good name, Nicole. Like it. All right. Well, yeah, I think we can get started. I will just start by introducing myself for anybody that may not know. My name is Nikki Caboose. I'm the VP of Development at Tech Hub South Florida. And then we also have Monica here, if you want to wave. She's our membership and inclusion specialist. Monica, for anybody that doesn't know her, she works very closely with me, helps us with a lot of our programming, very much involved with our members, both individual and corporate. And just a little bit about our organization is, you know, our mission statement, building South Florida into a tech hub. We work with a lot of our local headquartered corporate companies. We work with a lot of the higher institution educations, K through 12, really just trying to connect all of our tech ecosystem here in South Florida and bridging any gaps and making sure that we are bringing all of our resources together to build our tech hub here. So if anybody's interested in getting involved, whether as an individual member, corporate member, getting involved in any events, you can go to techhubsouthflorida.org. And there's more than enough information there for you, but please feel free to reach out to Monica or myself if you guys have questions or need help with anything. And I'm going to go ahead now and just hand it over to you, Albert, and let you do introductions and go from there.
Awesome. And thank you very much for allowing us to do this. And,
of course,
you know, we are not technically a technology company, but we do a lot with technology, and we do a lot with some of the legislative laws that affect all of us. And you know, I'm the owner of Kirby Employee Benefits. Mary works for me too. She's on here, and Carol also works for me. And Carol, you know, I was lucky enough to have Carol come on board a few years ago, and she's our COO, but she's also much more than that. She's also wears our legislative hat. There's a lot of legislation that affects our industry. So I had to have someone on board to keep up with all of that, because the laws change constantly, as we all know, in our industry, and they also change in the technology industry. So when Monica had mentioned us doing a tech talk, I threw a few topics over to Monica, and she jumped all over this one. And this is a good one that Carol came up with. She's got the creative mind on the team, because we know this really affects the technology industry, and we're on it too, because it also affects us in the healthcare industry, because we have to collect consumer data. But I'm not going to steal Carol's thunder. I'm going to let her jump right into it. She's got 10 or so slides to go through, and then we're going to take questions if there are any. And she's going to try to also relay how this could, you know, can affect people from a software creation standpoint to just about anything to do with technology. So without further ado, I want to introduce Carol, and Carol's going to take it from here.
Thanks, Albert. Nikki, I don't know, can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to make sure, because I'm like going, it doesn't show on on my view of it. I'm like going, nothing's showing but my name. So
we see the side view too, Carol. I don't know if you can make it a full screen, but
I was going to do that. For some reason, it was kind of looking a little funky when
there you go.
did it, because it was like removing part of the information on there.
So
So,
like when you just did that, it removed part of the information. So let the side piece go back.
oh, actually, for some reason, it put in.
Oh, there it is. It came back.
There it goes. That's what it
Okay.
did. Is it did animations on me, and I didn't know that it was doing it. So
Got
yeah,
it.
bad on me for keeping up with that tech, right?
All good.
So we have 2 bills in the House in Florida, as well as one in the Senate. The 2 House versions are 969 and 971. And then the Senate bill is 1734. The 969 bill is the one that's closest to the 1734. So that's likely the one that's going to be proceeding through. Both chambers, leadership, House and Senate, both, they want something to pass. It's also being pushed by the governor. And what this does is it actually adds to a lot of the Florida Information Protection Act, which was passed in 2014. It's basically Florida HIPAA with some additional information in there. So FIPA is what they call it. And it's a lot of the 2014 law was to protect against data breaches. This legislation would actually take effect as of January 1st of 2022. Provided that it, of course, makes it through the House, Senate, and the governor signs into law. So it's not something that's new. We've had versions of this dating back even into the 2008 when Illinois passed a similar bill, and then the European Union, which is one of the more, it's actually kind of like the most restrictive out there. So if you're abiding by those EU protocols, you're actually okay. With Florida's, you're already doing it, just with a few little additions that might need to be done. And then California and Virginia both have a version of the consumer data privacy law as well, but theirs take full effect in 2023. So if Florida does it, congratulations, you have just a couple months to get anything done that would need to be done. So it's a faster rollout. So we all know under HIPAA as well as FIPA that, you know, your name, social, date of birth, address, your insurance ID number, anything bearing your likeness, your driver's license number, all of those items are already part of the data privacy and security laws out there. And you know, of course, under HIPAA, which was back in the early 2000s, you know, that is also at the federal level. So what this would be doing is adding on basically a biometric screening issue that, sorry about that, where anything relating to you that would be physiological, biological, including any behavioral characteristics. So, you know, if, you know, we all know Siri and Alexa and all the others are always listening to us. So even some of those nuanced words that we might use more often, even any of that type of thing would be considered personal information, provided that, of course, the law passes. DNA would also be included, and this would be either by itself or in combination with any other identifying data. And that's solely if you could, of course, establish somebody's identity. So Ancestry and 23andMe, where they're basically, when you do those DNA tests and you you're able to go log in and put in your results, and it tries to, you know, basically kind of makes it where you can kind of see other people that have a similar DNA. That would also come into play with this. So it would need to be protected, as well as certain consumer rights would be put into play as well. It also includes any iris imagery, retina scans or photos, fingerprinting, face, hand, palm, vein pattern recognitions, any voice recordings, any face prints. They also have what's called a minutia template, which, maybe other small little pieces of information that are, basically something with like a word or other like, when you're speaking. So it may just be a small voice print of a word would also be included. If you're using particular keystroke patterns or rhythms, so basically passwords, any gait patterns. So if you are writing any apps for how many steps somebody takes, or if they are, walking, in certain areas at certain times of the day, anything along those lines, as well as any sleep patterns, health patterns, or even exercise data. So this is getting to be more and more and more, invasive into what has to be protected, as well as, what will need to be, looked at for the data privacy. So any companies that are collecting data, and this could be a third party, it may not be you collecting it, but if you're using, some clearinghouse or something for your data, you would be subject to this. Now, there are certain thresholds that would need to be in there, but a lot of your third party companies are going to meet that. And some of those thresholds include holding the information or gathering information on 50,000 or more people, as well and or 25 million in global annual revenue. And it could be either or as far as the thresholds for that. So what it does is it would require the businesses that are capturing, using, holding any of this data to publish a privacy policy for that information. And of course, the bill is going to define that personal information, which we already kind of talked about a little bit, as well as the addition of the biometric items. And anything that would allow somebody to identify, relate, or describe not only a consumer, but possibly even a household. I always use the example of the little, you've seen the window stickers on people's vehicles where they have the mom, the dad, the two kids, the dog, the cat, and little stick figure things. You're giving away way too much information about yourself. And it's kind of something similar to that for this portion of it. And it does not include, so those that are working in government records, it does not include anything where it's public record. It would also not include where the data is de-identified or it's aggregated, where you cannot pick out just one person or household in that. The businesses that are collecting the personal information would have to maintain an online privacy policy. It would need to be listed on their website, and it would need to be updated at least once every 12 months. And it's going to have to include very specific information. Florida, of course, passing, if this passes, which it's very, very likely to do before April the 30th, it will include any Florida specific consumer privacy right, which we'll get into in a little bit. A list of the categories of the personal information that the business collects or has collected about any of their customers. And then on those identified categories, the list that identifies those categories that the business sells or shares or has sold or shared, so it can even, be retroactive. If the business does not sell or share that information, then they would just need to, of course, disclose that. And then also on those identified categories, the list that identifies which categories of the personal information that are disclosed, shared. I don't know quite why that duplicated itself on there. And then lastly, the right to opt out of the sale. So each individual or household would have the right to opt out of the sale or sharing to third parties, and the ability to request deletion or correction of certain personal information. So for those of you that have dealt with HIPAA in the past, you know that you have the right to look at your medical records, and you also have the right to correct any wrong information in there. So your doctor's office, you know, if you state, well, I never came in for that, but they have it listed in your records, you actually have the right to collect that. And this would be a similar thing on any of your information that's out there that they're collecting. As for the consumer rights portion of this, the bill does give consumers those certain rights relating to that information. So we would have the right to access what was collected. We would have the right to delete or correct that information. And we would also, again, have that right to opt out of the sale or sharing of that personal information. It would require the businesses to comply with those consumer requests, as well as make certain information available on that business's website. So this is probably where it's going to kind of get a little more messy if you're having to disclose more information. So with the disclosing the information to the consumer, it would, I'm sorry, did someone have a question? Okay, thought I heard something. The personal information that has been collected, so the person would be able to state, I need to see everything that you've collected about me, and that business would have to give that information over. There was a limitation put into the 969 version that you could request it up to 2 times per 12 months. So the business would not be able to charge. Now, if somebody requested a 3rd or 4th time, then that would be a different story, that those first 2 within a 12-month period, there could be no charge for releasing that information to that person. This also, again, is probably going to get a little bit more messy when you start dealing with third parties. You know, we know that a lot of the social media out there, they collect a lot of this data on us, and they're selling that to third parties for the purpose of advertising. So it's going to kind of get a little bit more where you're going to have to possibly track down some things, you know, is being a consumer, to know where, you know, where and how to find out about those third parties out there. But it should be listed. So if you are using those, it would likely be easier and better to just post that within the policies that are required.
Hey, Carol, there was a question from Rhonda. She typed it in. Can you talk about MIB?
So I'm assuming you're referring to the Medical Information Bureau,
Yeah.
which is
Yes.
predominantly used for life insurance as well as disability insurance. That is still up. It's been operating the whole time, even with HIPAA, because it's something that's being used within the confines of you know, the protected data. It's used within the scope of daily activities of insurance. So part of that is how they're able to still continue using that. This doesn't specify that that information would need to be released from the MIB, but it would stand to reason that it should be. And in that case, then you would be able to, you know, get that information corrected. I know the MIB is, you know, garbage in, garbage out. We've all heard that term, and something wrong could have been reported to the MIB, and it, you should have the right, even under HIPAA, to correct that data because it is your medical diagnosis information. But this should convey over to that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because it is a concern, you know, most people don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
I sold insurance, so I know, but yeah, most people don't. They don't know that you need to know what's in there.
Yes, and we also have in the medical insurance arena, the insurance carriers also use a prescription database. So that too would also be, you know, you can get those records corrected, but trying to get that in there, you know, can be a bit of a chore. And there's several of those. The main one that's used on that is called GRX, which tracks all of the prescriptions that are taken by individuals. So the consumer rights also convey where a business cannot discriminate against a consumer who exercises any of their rights provided for in the bill. And it would include, the discrimination would include, but of course, this isn't an all-encompassing list. So the business could not deny goods or services. They could not charge different prices or rates for goods or services. And this could mean even, so if you offered a discount to those who gave the information, or if there was some type of surcharge that you, and I'll kind of delve into that a little bit more in just a moment, but you're going to have to justify and basically figure out how to kind of get around it with that justification. You also could not provide a different level of or quality of goods or services to that consumer if they're exercising their right under any of this. So you also would not even be able to suggest that that consumer would receive a different price or rate for those goods or services, or a different level or quality of goods or services. And while it doesn't prohibit a business from charging a consumer a different price or rate, it could, but you're going to have to basically justify by showing that, you know, by having this information, it makes a difference in the value provided to the business by that consumer's data. So again, we won't have a lot of the details on this because, you know, once a law is passed, it then goes to different regulatory agencies out there. And this is something that I see where those regulatory agencies are going to add in a lot more of the framework on this. And so expect this one to get a little bit more complicated, especially on that portion about where you could charge a different price or different services. Again, when we deal with much of anything government related, there are always going to be penalties. And in this, the bill allows the Department of Legal Affairs to bring any action or collect civil penalties from a business that violates the consumer requirements. And then any consumer whose personal information is the subject of a data breach may also bring the DLA can also bring a cause of action against that business in certain circumstances. Remembering that this is also part of, you know, the Florida HIPAA There's some additions in that. If there is a data breach and it is, you know, considered on that, in that medical world, HIPAA also comes in with penalties, which I didn't put in here, but they're pretty significant. They did raise those penalties several years back. Some of these are not as high. However, this is very certain specific. So consumer information, the damages of not less than 100, not greater than 750 per consumer per incident, or actual damages, whichever is greater. So if somebody's, you know, account got hacked for $1,500 because of a breach, then it would be the $1,500 in that instance. There are also injunctive and declaratory reliefs as the court deems proper. Again, that's going to be something where it's going to be going through courts, and they could impose other restrictions on a business. They could even throw out cease and desist orders, and effectively shut down somebody, you know, if there's data breaches. They could also bring action against any business, service provider, or others, person or entity. If there's unintentional violations, those could be subject to a $2,500 fine. And then for intentional violations, it would be a $7,500 fine. There's several specifications within this, and they do make some distinctions between ages. So if, you know, you're a social media platform and you're targeting to children under the age of 12, you have additional items within this that you would need to be cognizant of. And then there's also another section of people between the ages of that 12 and 16 range. There's, you know, a different set, and then 16 or older is also a little bit of a different set. But the tripling is for anybody 16 and younger. And then also if the violations are not corrected within 30 days after being notified in writing by the Department of Legal Affairs, they could also attack on even more penalties. And then also with HIPAA, the Florida HIPAA, you can have $1,000 per day, per person, per occurrence, per everything, not to exceed the $500,000. And of course, then if it's also protected under HIPAA, then you also have to add in those federal. So, and those are 100,000 plus per occurrence. So it can get very, very costly very, very quickly if these items aren't taken care of, and you know, making sure that you're abiding within that law. Again, you know, there could be some changes. It has already passed one hurdle. So it's already gone through one of the House committees. And if I recall correctly, there were 3 other committees that it needed to go through on the House side. The Senate side, it has been assigned to committees, but they have not had any of their committee meetings on it yet. It likely will get pretty quickly through those, because again, it was something that all of the different leaderships in both of the chambers, you know, were wanting to make sure that Floridians were, of course, protected, and, you know, that there were, you know, ways that, you know, we can protect our information and, you know, opt out of things. I know that certain lists that you can sign up on, they already have the opt out if you live in California, and if you don't live there, because they do ask for your address or at least your zip code, then, you know, they'll even write you back and say, well, you don't live in California, therefore you don't have this right. But this would, of course, fix that. I saw that just a few weeks ago. I believe it was a newsletter that I was looking at signing up for, just to try to kind of get the all the legal stuff that we have to deal with in health insurance and other insurance world. And it had that on there where only Californians could opt out at this point. So that would be something that they would have to change that for Florida quickly.
Hey, Carol, you and I talked a little bit when we were getting all this created and put together about, what's the relevance for some of the technology firms that are in Tech Hub and how it could affect what they do moving forward if this law passes. And can you give that response?
Yeah, so, as technology becomes more and more prevalent, especially with COVID, because you're seeing more people, working remotely, they're using their computer more, their phone more, their tablet more. I mean, when you think about it, Google tracks our steps, they track where we are, they track everything. Same thing with Apple, they track everything. And all those different apps that are out there, even an app, and you sign up for an account. Well, if you're getting information on more than 50,000 people, you're going to have to be abiding by this. So, and you have a responsibility to protect all of those accounts. So usernames, any other personal information that's captured, passwords, the CVV code off of your credit card, all of that is subject in this. And, it's very pervasive. I mean, if you think about how much you pick up your phone and use it, to, I'm sure mine's probably even listening in on me talking about this, your vehicle even, because if you have like most of the auto manufacturers now have an app for your vehicle, this is going to affect them because their income level is going to be greater than that threshold. So even like I have a Ford app, so I know when I need to have an oil change, it communicates all the time with it. Well, I have an account, I have a username, I have a password. It collected my date of birth, my address, all of that information. So all of that is going to even be subject to it. And of course, if they then share it, they're going to have to, have ways for us to opt out of having that information shared outside of, what its intended purpose is for me to unlock my doors remotely or whatever.
So really so that sounds like that's like the main thing is the sharing of that info after this law would give us more protection against that.
Yes. Yeah. So, if you're ever wondering, why am I now all of a sudden on this list and I'm getting these, emails that I didn't sign up for, that will help cut down on a lot of that. I know even like within some of the legal, the newsletters that I see there, I know that a few of them have shared that information with others and not necessarily disclose that. And all of a sudden I'm getting, certain advertisements and other things that it's like, no, I don't want that.
Yeah. Rhonda just chimed in. Your phone is one of your biggest spies in your life. That's scary.
Yes. Yeah. Watch The Social Dilemma. If you, and that I know is just, cutting, the very, very tip of the iceberg or the surface. I know that our phones listen to us. And, we also kind of don't realize sometimes when we're giving away information. So I talked about the little stickers on everybody's back window, the family, the little stick family, and they're all into, Star Wars or Star Trek, or, they got the little lightsaber and the little robots and all that. It's not hard, especially for, anybody that wants to do harm to somebody. A lot of us have that information out there advertised on the back window of our car.
Yeah.
And it's sitting in your driveway. And so, even, when they did all the Google location stuff and they do all the satellite, like the Google Earth and all of that, you can, with the, some of those, you can narrow down and, those screens enough to know, okay, there's 4 people that live in their house. They have a dog or a cat, or they don't. And, so even criminals would, want to be using that data. So all the more reason that, there needs to be a lot more safeguards on the tech side, because it is too easy for us to, lose that data. If you've ever left your phone in a restaurant or something and had that panic attack, I have not done that. I will knock on wood. I have not done that, but I know people that have.
Yeah.
And, so there's so much data sitting in that little, 3x5 or 3x6, contraption that we all have attached to us pretty much 24/7, and it counts our steps and we don't know it.
Right. So does